Hey class, welcome to lesson 3 of this testing week. Today we're going to be doing something that is similar to what we've been working on, but also a little bit different. Today we are going to be comparing and contrasting two very similar stories. You're going to be doing this through a compare and contrast chart at the end, and then also through writing and telling me how the stories are similar. We're going to start off by reading a story called Coyote and the Meat. It says it is retold by Kim Fisher. Retold, remember, means again, so it's being told again. This is a story that's been passed down before. There's just someone who is telling the story again. I'm going to go ahead and read this story, and then I'm going to ask you and have you think about some questions in the story. Then we're going to read the second story and begin comparing and contrasting the two. Coyote and the Meat. A long time ago, a hungry fox was roasting meat for dinner. While it cooked, Fox lay down to sleep. Coyote came by. That meat smells so good. Coyote saw that Fox was asleep. Coyote tiptoed over to the fire. He pulled out the meat. He ran off with it. He ate it all up. Only the bones were left. Then Coyote tiptoed back to Fox. Coyote rubbed the end of the greasy bone on Fox's mouth. Quickly, Coyote put all the bones back in the fire. He ran off. Fox woke up. He licked his lips. He tasted grease. I don't remember eating, Fox said. Then he looked at his fire. He saw only bones. I must have eaten all the meat, Fox told himself. But why am I still hungry? Just then, Fox saw Coyote's tracks in the sand. Coyote tricked me, Fox shouted. When I catch that coyote, he'll be sorry. But Coyote was far, far away. What a story. What a trick, too. So let's look back. We're going to talk about some questions, some of the things that happened in the story. I want you to think, and then we'll talk through the answers. So we've talked about story elements. Who are the characters in the story? Take a minute, point out their names, or think about their names. Who are the characters in the story? There are only two. There is Coyote and the Fox. What do the Coyote and the Fox want? Think about that. What do they want? They want something to eat. Both of them do. That's why Fox made his dinner and Coyote came and ate it. They want something to eat. I want you to think of some adjectives that might describe what Coyote is like. Remember, an adjective is a word that describes a noun. So in this case, our noun is Coyote. How would you describe that coyote? Think about two adjectives. Think about two. And I want you to write them down. What are the two adjectives Coyote is like? Coyote is sneaky. That's an adjective I think of. He was able to around the house, and Fox didn't even hear him. I would also say Coyote is tricky. I'd say he's tricky because he was able to fool the fox. The fox thought he ate the food when he really didn't. It was Coyote. How are Coyote and Fox different? We talked about similarities and differences this week. How are they different? How are they not the same? Think about that for a minute. Coyote was not a good little guy, right? He stole the food and he tried to trick the fox into thinking he ate the food. Where Fox, in this story, we don't see that he's tricky or sneaky or mean. We see that he is just a regular old fox trying to cook his food, eat, and then nap. He did not do anything wrong. looking at this last paragraph in our story, I want you to think as I reread it, how does the fox feel? Maybe even put yourself in this situation too. How would you feel? I bet it's similar to the fox. Just then, Fox saw Coyote's tracks in the sand. Coyote tricked me, Fox shouted. When I catch that coyote, he'll be sorry. But Coyote was far, far away. How do you think that the fox felt? Do you think he was happy? Do you think he was, okay, fine, he ate my food? No, he was mad. He seemed angry. Notice these exclamation points at the end of the sentence. That means he's yelling. He's being loud. He's upset. He's not happy. Now we're going to go right into our second story. This story is very similar to the coyote and the meat, but this one is called Coyote and the Cliff. Even the titles are very similar. I'm going to read this one out loud. We are not going to talk much about this one. I'm going to give you an opportunity to think about the details going on in this story. And then also when you get into your class kick, I will have the stories there where you can reread them if you need to, or listen to me reread them. But let's go ahead and read The Coyote and the Cliff. A long time ago, Coyote was resting below a high cliff. He saw Fox coming near. Ooh, pause. Already we have the same characters. Ooh, that's a similarity. Coyote and Fox. Let's see if there are any more similarities. Fox looked angry. Coyote had played a trick on him. Now Fox wanted to fight. Uh-oh, Coyote said. He did not have time to run away. Coyote leaned hard against the cliff. Oh, come quick, he called to Fox. I need help. What's wrong? Asked Fox. Look up, said Coyote. You'll see that this big cliff is falling. It will crush us both. I need help holding it up. Fox looked up. The clouds were passing over the cliff. They made it seem as if the cliff was moving. Fox jumped up next to Coyote. He, too, leaned against the cliff. Coyote leaped away from the cliff. Wait here, he told the fox. I'll get a big stick to prop up the cliff. Coyote dashed off. Ooh, Coyote's running away again. That's what he did in the first story, another similarity. Fox stayed there all day. He waited for Coyote to come back with a big stick. As the sun was setting, Fox looked up. There were no clouds in the sky. He could see that the cliff was not falling. Coyote has tricked me again, yelled Fox. Fox raced off. I'll catch him this time, he shouted. I really will. Ooh, and notice those exclamation points again at the end of our story. He sounds angry again. So we've just heard two stories that are very similar, but also have some differences. So we're going to continue to practice comparing and contrasting. Let's go straight to our class kick. Whoops, thought I had it pulled. Give me one moment. Let's go straight to our class kick. All right, so we are in week 2, and it is the last day of week 2. Like I said, you will hear those two stories read again if you need to. Then when you go to slide 14, you are going to see this. This looks similar to our Venn diagram. Remember those circles that overlap? But I think this one will do us better because there's more room to write our similarities and differences. And so here on this side, you're going to tell me how Coyote and the Meat, the first story, is different than Coyote and the Cliff. And on this side, you're going to write how Coyote and the Cliff is different than Coyote and the Meat. But in the middle, it says both. It says what? Both. In the middle, you're going to write how they are similar. Let's do some together. So I'm going to think about both of those stories, and I stopped to think about how a couple ways that they're similar. Well, I know that in Coyote and the Meat, the coyote tricked the fox by rubbing the bone on his face so he thought he ate his food. And I know that in Coyote in the Cliff, he tricked him by telling him the cliff was falling. So in both stories, Coyote tricked the fox. So I'm going to type that in. It does not need to be a complete sentence. It just needs to be a note so you remember. Coyote tricked fox in both of them. Well, but the way that he tricked them in each story are different. What was Coyote's trick in Coyote in the Meat? He rubs the meat, he eats. Coyote eats fox's meat. And then in Coyote and the Cliff, that's not the same trick. The trick was in Coyote and the Cliff that Coyote tricked Coyote held up the cliff. Remember, he pretended that the cliff was falling. I'm going to say he pretended the cliff was falling. Good. So those are two differences and one similarity. Well, I want you to go back to slides 12 and 13, reread or re-listen to the stories. Come back and tell me, how else are they similar? How else are they different? Then, when you are finished for your exit ticket, you're going to go to slide number 15. Slide 15, you're going to finish these sentences. Sentence 1 says, in both stories, Coyote. So you're going to finish that sentence. Tell me one thing that Coyote did in both stories. So that's a similarity. And for number 2, you're going to finish this sentence. In both stories, Fox. Finish that sentence. Tell me, what did Fox do in both of those stories? Both of the stories. Do your best, write in complete sentences. Remember, you're finishing these sentences, so make sure there's a period at the end. And when you finish, you can get on Lexia for 20 minutes. Get all that time in. Thanks.